Mics are hot. It's the 8. I remember that one.
I know sometimes. This is wrong.
Oh, this. Oh, yeah, that's the day that he wrote it. Yeah. Good evening and welcome to our select board meeting for Monday, April 13th. To kick us off, Lately, would you read the quote for the evening?
Two. If it is important to you, you will find a way. If not, you will find an excuse. Brian Blair.
Thank you. And as usual, we'll start off with the citizens forum. If anybody has a non-agenda item that they'd like to address, please come up to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Sandy Cameron, and I intend to run for a position on the select board in June.
Start tonight if you would like to.
Has anybody got any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Any other non-agenda items? Yep.
Josh Beveridge, just want to give you a slight update on the Recs Commission, even though we're not a commission as of the moment. We have been doing and rolling the ball for projects. Hopefully by week's end, we should have all of the dugouts re-roofed and trimmed, painted, to be painted at a later date by the end of the month, and the Green Monster should be resheathed with new power. And this weekend I don't know if you know, there's a rock wall. Most of the people don't know. The closest ender is Petunia Pump. We re-excavated that of its 10-year leaf pile and to make our town a little bit nicer. So, just some mild improvements that we hopefully are going to have by next meeting, which
Thank you.
nobody put that for.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else with a non-agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move on to the administrator's report. David.
A couple of things that are ongoing. We have vegetation removal wrapped up on the Heel Road, Martin Corner Road loop. We'll be doing some adjacent to Tanglewood Road and perhaps a little bit on Duck Trap Road coming. We're about to commence with the reconstruction of the next phase of reconstruction on Morton Road this week if the weather kind of cooperates. Posted roads, we are evaluating those. They're probably, some will be done down this week and some probably next week. And then in terms of elections, nomination papers were due on Friday. We had 2 seats available on the select board. We have 2 people that turned nomination papers back in. One is Mr. Cameron and the other is Mr. McGuire, who's sitting in the back as well. We had 4 people return papers for the 3-year term, for 2 3-year terms on the Lincolnville Central School Committee. Lauren Beveridge, Jared Harbaugh, Chloe Gefkin, and this one, Christy Hardy-Gilson. And we had 1 person return nomination papers for the 1-year term on the Lincolnville Central School. Brittany, I apologize, I would butcher her name, so I'm going to try. I'll try.
I'll see about it.
Thank you. I'll see you, lady. And no one returned nomination papers for the budget committee openings. So if anybody wants to be on the budget committee, get 4 or 5 of your at least 5 people to write you in and fill in the oval next to your name on election day, June 9th. You can request not absentee ballots as of now. You will not get one until 30 days prior to elections unless we get them in early, but the request is available to citizens that wish to vote absentee.
Great. Any questions for David? We'll move on to meetings and announcements.
All meetings are here at the town office unless announced otherwise. The budget committee meets Tuesday, April 14th, 6 p.m. The town office will be closed in observance of Patriots Day on Monday, April 20th. The Board of Assessment Review has a training session on Thursday, April 23rd, 6 p.m. And the Select Board meets next on Monday, April 27th, 6 p.m.
Thank you. And are there any upcoming community events? Seeing none. We'll move on to meeting minutes for March 23rd and for a motion.
I move the board approve the March 23rd, 2026 meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Next up, we have a request to establish a speed limit for Stan Silly Road. We have Wendy Pelmson here. Like to speak to this?
Lindy Pendleton, 77 Stan Silly Road. And it's a dead end street and a lot of people miss that sign. And they think they're on Green Acre Road and they go by my house about 50 miles an hour. Just before the dead end. And there's 4 horses, 5 cats, 8 cats, 5 children under the age of 9. Dogs everywhere. And everything's been pretty good, pretty safe, but there's a lot of speeders, and I've proposed that the town talk to the state about some signs, slow them down. If they'll see them or not, I don't know. Okay?
Any questions? Yep.
So have you had a conversation with Waller County Sheriff's Department?
No. No, it's an occasional, I suspect they come out of Belfast, cross the river and take the first right. Well, it's Green Acre Road at the intersection.
Yeah.
They see this little street and they come down in there. And a lot of them they get down to the end and see it's a dead end and they'll back up to my house. And I'm usually out there and I ask them, why would you back up 3/8 of a mile to turn around in my driveway full of cars when there's nobody down there? Well, it's a dead end. And I let them, I don't mind.
So are you thinking more signage to indicate dead end, or are you thinking speed?
Speed. Yeah, there's very
Who's-
first if there's a
Who's
dead
going to
end.
enforce it? The speed?
I don't know. The sheriff's,
Well, when's the last time you saw a sheriff here in town?
yeah,
You know, it's disappointing, but, yeah, we're not having too much luck with them enforcing stuff like that. But, so you're looking for a speed limit sign instead of more,
a lot lower than
signage.
50,
what's that?
a lot lower than 50.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
But yeah, there's a dead end sign, but it's just as you-
Personally, I'm just not sure a speed limit sign is gonna do anything for you
Yeah.
there,
I see.
really. And I go from that to who's gonna enforce it, because you get a speed limit sign in there, then you're gonna have more complaints. You call Waldo County and it's a secondary road to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. What does everybody else think?
I mean, it could, for those, for those that pay attention, it could act as sort of a self-regulating kind of thing, or, you see, of course, it would be up to the DOT to set that speed limit,
Right.
which I'm nervous about. We don't have any say over what
Yeah.
they decide, but you would hope it would be pretty low,
Yeah,
given it's
35 or
Yeah,
25.
yeah.
hopefully.
25.
And myself, I mean, I agree with Kern of your sentiments. At the same time, as Lee just said lately,
Can it hurt?
it can't hurt. And if somebody sees a dead end, maybe they don't see the dead end, but if
No, it's-
there's also a speed limit sign, which is hopefully it would come back as a fairly low speed. And between those two things would be like, oops, maybe I got the wrong road.
So where is the dead end? And forgive me, I haven't been up there in a
So
little
on the
while.
right, just as you start in,
Yeah. Right hand side, right? Yeah. Yellow.
yeah,
Big. Yeah, one on each side. In addition to requesting from the state to take a look at it, I wonder if we could put another sign on the opposite side. Just so that for clarity, you know what I mean?
yeah, and
Um,
they're missing it.
Yeah.
Some of them.
I've missed things over time too. But I get it. I get it.
Yeah, I'd like to see it drop down to 25.
Yeah.
For the safety of all the animals and people and my chickens out there feeding. My little dog thinks it's her road. And she just loves people and everybody that comes down and she runs out to greet them. And she's the same color as the oak leaves in the ditch and the dead grass. So she's wearing a fluorescent orange bandana and will be. Just a proposal.
Yeah.
I don't have any issue with putting a request into
I do.
to the state.
I guess my one question is I. Are there any criteria that the state may come back, I'm looking at our town administrator. If we don't like the speed limit, are we stuck?
Yes.
How many people live? Six.
Well, it's up to us to post it, correct? So if we don't like the speed limit, we don't have to post it. Question mark.
It is our responsibility to post the road when the speed limit is established, yes.
Gotcha.
So it's a little bit of a gamble. But
It
I
is.
still believe that on a dead end road, they'd establish a low speed limit. And so
Me too.
if you're ready, I'll go ahead and make that motion.
Let's go for it.
I move to have the town administrator request the Maine DOT regional traffic engineer to establish a speed limit for Stan Silly Road. And when that limit is established, that the town post the road accordingly.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Believe so. All in favor?
I do think maybe it'd be worthwhile if we, just take a drive down there and check out the location of
Yeah.
the dead end and just see if it's worth moving it or.
Does it need to be slightly further down the road or on both sides of the road?
Yeah,
Worth looking at.
And there's no place for them to turn around down at the end.
No.
Yeah.
No, the snowplows have a right to turn in the background. I don't know. Legally, there has to be a place for traffic to turn around at the end of the dead end or not.
Maybe we could put a no turn.
Hmm.
On one side and dead end on the other, I mean, but. They pretty much.
yeah. We'll tackle one
We'll try
problem at a time.
Yes.
Thanks, Lindy.
Thanks, Lindy.
Next item up is we have a liquor license renewal for Inn at Ocean's Edge. Sure. Any questions regarding this one? Common issue is going away, so. which is a
Yeah.
Good thing.
Yeah. And I don't.
Really?
Don't have any.
I don't either. Anything you'd like to say to the board? Okay,
Thank you for
look-
being present.
yes, I'd look for a motion then.
I move that the board approve the liquor license requested by Stone Coast Road 2 LLC, doing business as the Inn at Ocean's Edge, and that the town administrator be authorized to indicate such on the Bureau of Alcohol and Lottery Operations Portal.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, next up, we have Tasha. Speak about the pre-K outdoor classroom. Actually, we can't take anything at the meeting. It wasn't provided in advance. Okay.
Cool.
Okay. All right, so last year you guys approved for me to make an outdoor classroom with a 1-year probationary period. And I just wanted to let you know that due to the hard work of some incredible community members, some of which are here, we have an outdoor classroom. We have a natural stick wall barrier, which establishes the learning area, a mud kitchen for sensory and imaginary play, natural Lincoln lawns and large tree cookies for building. We have 2 picnic tables for activities and art projects, a beautiful stuffed circle for meetings, a weatherproof outdoor learning bin that holds all necessities and art supplies. We have an outdoor toilet with privacy walls. Thank you to the Dunhams. The stream is an option on days when students come prepared with outdoor gear, with the necessary gear, and the teachers deem it safe to play. We have everything that we need to promote outdoor learning for the early ages. Because of this outdoor classroom, students have been able to engage in free play in the natural Maine woods. We've also been able to use the outdoor classroom as a home base and a meeting area before hikes around the Russo Trail, which is really nice. Students love to keep the outdoor classroom clean and organized, and they love to add to this natural stick barrier and keep it standing tall. I'm happy to announce that it is being used not only by pre-K, but by kindergarten, first grade, and second grade at least once a month, which is huge. It's really exciting. And we've begun the process of pairing up with Tanglewood Open Air Classroom to help get students into the outdoor classroom more often next year with more adult supervision. I have maintained communication with Coastal Mountain Land Trust, and they have come and assessed the land to ensure that it is taken care of. They have said that it is well maintained and that there is minimal to no signs of erosion or compaction. They will continue to come and check on the outdoor classroom and help guide us on how to best preserve that land in the stream. And Coastal Mountain Land Trust also awarded us grant money to get child size meters for the next school year. So exploring on the stream is more possible. Thank you for letting us create it in the first place, and we're just looking to continue on.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions for Tasha?
Mini waiters.
Good.
No, I just think kudos to the efforts and nothing
Fruits in
better.
the
Yeah,
pudding.
yeah.
Yes.
Pretty great.
Okay. There's no other questions. Look for a motion.
I move that the select board authorize the continued use of the town property adjacent to the cross-country trail for an outdoor classroom with all expenses and operational oversight to be borne by the Lincolnville Central School, and that this use be allowed until the approval is rescinded by the select board.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
I mean, I don't have to come.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it means you don't have to.
You can swear about other stuff, but not about this.
Yeah.
Oh, done. Yeah, I want the mini waiters.
Excellent. So next up, we have the Maine DOT community-based initiatives. Michael Corey is here today.
Everybody for your patience. I was supposed to be here times before.
Sorry about that.
You sorry about that. So I'm Michael Corey. I'm the regional planner for both the Mid-Coast and Western regions of Maine. That is Region 2 and 3. It's a little bit different from looking at transit. So if any of you have a curiosity that way, don't pay attention to those regions because that will confuse the heck out of you. So I'm here to talk about our community-based initiatives. We have a number of them.
There we go.
There we go. So the first one is the Planning Partnership Initiative. These tend to be, well, first off, these are all community-based initiatives, which means they're driven by you, requested by you, administered by you, I oversee, the grant portion of it that goes into it. Usually for the planning partnership initiative and the village partnership initiative, those fall under like technical assistance planning. We work with you to help choose a consultant who will then go through this process of reviewing an area of the town that you are seeking to change. A lot of this is both transportation planning and placemaking. So not just fixing up your roads, but also kind of figuring out what other elements can plug into walk, bike, that kind of thing. Typically, the planning partnership initiative and the village partnership initiative follow plans. There's also an active transportation partnership initiative, which is administered by our active transportation planner, Dakota Hewlett. That can be smaller projects, but more construction oriented. So if you just are looking for a small connection from here to there, improving the crossing, that kind of thing, that's the tool to use. Village partnership initiatives tend to be large transformative things, again focusing on downtown village area, revitalization, safety focus. Local match is required for Lincolnville. I think that's a 50-50. It's based on your state evaluation. And it's looking to make large scale improvements in downtown and village centers. For municipalities, for towns that have an idea of what they would like to see happen. And are just kind of short of actually getting from the vision to implementation. So here are a few examples. We've got, I believe that's Hallowell, which was kind of the catalyst for this program when we started to incorporate these elements to really wind in all of these different transportation elements and the placemaking elements as well. The municipal partnership initiative, that's administered by our region, so that's going to be Dave Allen. It tends to deal more heavily with transportation infrastructure, core of the road network on state and state aid roads, surface treatments, drainage, that sort of thing. Again, following that cost share, which I believe is that 50-50. Pedestrian funding program. There are federal transportation alternatives. So like new sidewalk reconstruction, safe routes to school projects, that sort of thing. That's more of a federal project. And we can help you develop some of these applications. Just let us know what you're hoping for, what you'd like to go after, and I am happy to either get that information for you or speak to my colleagues who are more focused in their various areas of expertise. We also recently launched a new context classification system, which tends to try and make which tries to look at the context of the road and see what measures may be appropriate to implement, what things might be missing, what things need to be overbuilt. And there is a new speed limit setting process, which is going to be of interest to anybody looking at Stan Silly Road. As well as an updated complete streets policy, which if you have questions, go ahead and contact me and I can walk you through any of those. So we also do some traffic calming and demonstration projects, which if you have an idea of what you'd like to see happen, but you're not really sold on being a long-term thing, investing that money into the construction of it, that's a good way to test it out and see. Will this actually work? Will this actually fit? And get some data going into it, what's going on in the area that you're trying to test, what kind of elements, and then you come away from that demonstration project with an idea. Well, that worked, that didn't work, we like these elements of it, and this can be challenging to maintain. Local synergies, sometimes when we get these projects going ahead of our, going into our work plan, you can contact me regarding any of the things going on. I think we have a couple of projects for paving and ditching going in around through the village core here, that we can, you can talk to me about this, say, hey, we're concerned about these different elements, and I can try and bring that to the work plan. And the project managers there, and also things maybe from local infrastructure improvements side of it, so we can kind of work together and coordinate on that. Thank you very much. I am your regional planner, and then we also have Dakota Hewlett, who would be active in this area. Jared and Matt are both north and southwest, as far as area of responsibility. And I can move this up here if anybody wants to write down. Are there any questions or?
Open it up to any questions from the audience. Seeing none, any questions from board members? Yes, Graham.
Just wanted to. You said 50-50.
Yes.
Match there, but there was a federal thing there that was directly related to
Right.
sidewalks and things of that nature, 2080,
Yes.
and
That's significant, big difference.
that's a big deal for a small town.
Right. So
And that's the sidewalk thing and the safety and in amongst our school down to our Main Street and over to, well, we've got 2 stores really here in town that a lot of the townspeople go to.
mhm.
So I'm not really speaking out of turn here, but some of the ideas I've heard people talk about, wouldn't it be nice to have sidewalk that goes from the school all the way to both of our stores, and that would encompass the middle of town.
Right.
So a 2080 is a lot more inviting than a 50-50,
Well,
especially in a small town like this.
right. So the 50-50 for like for a much smaller project makes more sense there. For the planning partnership or village partnership initiatives, we're looking at a 50-50 split for a study to kind of draw out some
Understood.
concepts. So it's
Okay.
going to be a lower price point than the actual construction. And then we usually go other routes to seek construction funding and kind of right size those requests based on your budget, based on like how do we get these things done.
Okay.
I might be new here, but I plan on making any plans that just sit on a shelf and see these things in fruition.
Yeah, so what is the price range of, say, if we wanted to take a comprehensive look at the center here from, because the 4-way stop at 52, 170, that
Yeah,
4-way is problematic. The speed through the center is problematic. The fact that there really aren't safe shoulders or sidewalks for people to walk on is problematic. And so if we were looking in this center area,
mhm.
what is the scope of that sort of initial study?
So the that scope would be looking at the physical area and the characteristics thereof. But the process would be, you ask us about the initiative, which this kind of starts that conversation. And then we figure out how much it would cost. I would try and run the numbers to see based on like what we've been getting. And then we put it out to bid, we'd see who comes back, and then we choose based on those qualifications of the consultants and how closely that aligns with the town's vision for what goes on, or for what would be implemented.
So how comprehensive can this work be? Instead of just, oh, let's talk about sidewalks, or let's talk about traffic calming, or let's talk about a crosswalk. Can we do this in a holistic manner?
That's kind of what these studies end up going towards. Like, we just kicked off one, or we've got a couple going right now, and you can request like some examples of what these studies have produced. We had one come out finished in Monson. We have one finished up in Norway, which they're now looking at getting some of these things implemented. And particularly if you're looking at, you're asking about the holistic thing, like they'll come up with concepts that address like holistic issues. It's not just like, well, we'll put a speed bump here, here, that sort of thing. Like they try to look at the whole picture.
And to start that process, we would basically interface with you to
Yeah.
brainstorm what that would look like. You've heard, I mean, there's speed limit through town. What kind of traffic calming, without speed bumps, hopefully we could do. Sidewalks is a big one.
Yeah.
We've got a crosswalk in town here that is desired in one location. Yeah, lighting. On a separate note, you brought up ditching.
Yes.
And there, I know in the past, there's been ditching that's taken place in town, which some believe it led to us having to replace a well in town. Based on the way the water flowed after the ditching.
Right.
And such. So what were you referring to, I guess, in that ditching component?
So that ditching component, in our current work plan, year, we have, so our work plan is like a 3-year plan, what we hope to accomplish. And on that list is some light capital paving Route 235. Can't remember what the name of that road is.
Hope Road, it's this road right here.
Yeah, Hope Road, yep.
And then there's also ditching starting from the Hope Lincolnville town line down to the intersection of Route 52. So if there are concerns there, do you know if that's already been brought up to region towards maintenance and operations as far as that flooding or damage to the wells?
That was a years ago issue.
Yeah.
There, yeah.
Yeah.
It's also a very present concern. So
Yeah, but I made a note of that as well, that in that, the holistic view, because we have a myriad of issues at play in a densely populated area with a lot of kids and folks that like to walk. So it's definitely of interest to me to at least find out what we're looking at financially to get into this process.
right.
And so I would be interested if you have some examples that you could share with us. And what price tags attached to that, but it sounds, on the surface, it sounds really attractive.
There's been enough questions that get raised to us on a regular basis that that's the right approach to take next.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Very-
Thanks for all
very
the
helpful.
information.
Yeah, I'm happy to clarify or expound on that. So
Fabulous.
Next up is.
Yeah.
For technology.
Sure.
Yeah, what they did. And
What their study was. and what
yeah,
that means.
which I want to clarify with David is is, Michael, are you going to forward that information or do we need to send a formal request? For that information? If you just, send it to David, that would be great.
We'll
Thank
get you one there.
Good, thank you.
Excellent. So next up, we have a duck trap project update from the Conservation Commission. It is a good evening.
Yeah. Will Brown, Conservation Commission, and we've also, we've got Dave Perkins here from the commission, Sheila Polson is over there, and Cindy Dunham, who's just joined the commission and is back to join us for tonight. Nice. I'm just here for starters, I guess, just as a reminder from our meeting last September, when I started talking about the project down at Duck Trap Point, Howe Point Road, the duck trap spit down at the beach. And for a few years since COVID, it's been used very heavily. And the spit, unfortunately, is a beautiful spot, but it's also a parking lot. And you cross the bridge and you look down at the spit on a busy day in the summertime, and it's just a parking lot with sometimes maybe a dozen and a half cars parked out there and people using the beach as best they can. So with that increased usage, and then also the storms in January of 23, the two storms that basically shifted the spit inland and moved a lot of the rubble stone inland into the harbor area, and therefore made it a little bit less stable too. We're concerned about public safety, and we're also concerned about the impacts on natural resources and such. It is one of the 7 or 8 salmon spawning streams on the East Coast, and they're all in Maine, but we have one right here in town, and we're lucky for that. So we've proposed to consider something to help with the parking situation, not to cut it off necessarily, but just to help with it, alleviate some of the parking by, this is state of Maine land. And then along Route 1, there's a Duck Trap Road coming down to Route 1 right here. So what we're proposing and trying to figure out how to go about doing it with grants and everything else is to do a parking lot with 8 to 10 cars up here. Maine DOT has already come and looked at it in terms of is there a feasible egress onto Route 1 or off of Route 1 there to have a driveway to go down to this parking lot. And they've given us the rough okay. Doug Brown came out and looked at it, and we walked it one day and said, yes, you can do it. We just need to keep it right close to the corner of the property and almost opposite the entrance to Duck Trap Road would be the natural place to do it. So an 8 to 10 vehicle parking area, a porta potty, and then a 1,500-foot trail that meanders down through the woods. There's one spot where there's a bridge that goes over a bit of a swell there. A footbridge. The hard part is down when you get towards the water, because this is slightly downhill grade for the most part, but then it drops off during that last section on the bluff that goes down to the water. But we've had a number of people walk it with us between Coastal Mountain Land Trust folks, because they have the Murray Preserve right next door to this whole area, and the Duck Trap condos are over this way. They've come down, and Maine Trails groups come down to look at it. Eric Brooks from the state park has come down and takes care of the trail stuff in Camden Hill State Park. And we're narrowing down little by little. This is where we've gotten at this point where possibly the best trail would be in terms of the soil conditions that we're dealing with. And the engineering that would need to take place down here on this the switchback to get down to the head of the spit. And down there would also be a parking, an outhouse, which there is, the town's already doing that, so that there would be there. There would also be signage up here at the top, a major sign that would, alert people from their travel Route 1 that this is where you stop, get off the park. And then a kiosk at the top and at the bottom, that with some information, maps, things like that. The idea is just to encourage people, it's gonna take time, but to encourage people to consider an alternative rather than getting all bottlenecked up there on the spit. Not everybody's gonna wanna do it for sure, but it's a start. Start to change it and turn it, got a nice place for a trail to walk down too, as long as you're not trying to take your barbecue down there. You're okay. By keeping this small, 8 to 10 vehicles, it keeps it out of some of the restrictions we have to answer to for ADA accessibility and such. It's a footpath. Oh, let's see, that's a starter. So we've been searching out grant possibilities and such. We've looked at the lease with the state, which we can keep going with. I think we have until 2032 right now with the lease. But we can renew it every 5 years as long as we want to. As long as we give them a little bit of a notice and they're happy with us as tenants. Because the point, and I'm just gonna go back to this on the lease, one thing that the lease says, our lease with the state says that the town will develop and maintain and manage the duck trap project, meaning that area down there at the spit, for public conservation. So in other words, taking care of the place, recreation and or educational programs. And the use of these premises is in the public interest and is consistent with the management objectives of the Bureau of Parks and Lands, who we've been in touch with. And Dave, I think, is going to, and Sheila also may have something to say about this too. We've been in touch with them in a couple of different ways, and they are keen on this project, basically, you know, without getting into doing any of the paperwork or anything about it, but they like the idea of the project. They think it's a worthy project as that relates to potential grant funding to pay for the project. Let's see. Would you like to have something to say? Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Dave Perkins, my job is to tell you what we need from you. So we submitted a letter through David Kinney to get the state to approve what we want to do. And they responded back with a bunch of questions. And we worked with Dave to create a response. And so it's sometime soon, we'd like you to sign off on Dave sending that response back. One of the things that the state asked us is, does the town want this land? And the commission feels very strongly that it would be good for the town to own this land. Because right now we're basically leasing it forever. So why not own it forever? And it's spectacular land with the cow point. So we really hope that, you know, kind of separate from what we're doing, we really hope that the selectmen will take that up. And the letter that Dave's sending back, he could indicate in that the selectmen do have interests, and how do we pursue that conversation, or you could do that separately. The other thing is, Will just mentioned that we met with the Maine Trails program and have received very positive feedback. The deadline for that is in June, late June, after the town meeting. So one of the questions we had for David was, do we need to be on the town warrant? The grant, if we got it, would cover 90% of the costs. And the state would like the other 10% to come from volunteer labor, which we will provide. So there's no cost to the town, except the town will have to fund it and then get reimbursed. The cost is about $60,000 when you take the 10% out. It gets down to about $53,000 for the actual grant. So one of the questions we have to you tonight, can you authorize us to work with the process to get approval in June for us to apply for the grant, number one, and then secondly, to have the town fund the front end of the grant and then get reimbursed 100%. So we're not asking for any long-term money, but the short-term. The other thing is we've started working with Midcoast Trails Stewardship, which is a nonprofit that they did these plans and they will professionally build this trail. So we'll volunteer with people who really know what they're doing. And they also will help with the permit applications and notifying all the, when you cross a wetland, you need to get a permit by rule. When you get near shoreland, you got to do various things. They have expertise about that. We have a couple of $1,000s of our own funds that town holds that we raised in the past. We'd like to give you a heads up that we'd like to spend a couple of those $1,000 on the main trails folks so that they can help us do what they're doing. I don't think there has to be any formal approval, but David said always tell the selectmen what you are doing. So we'll work with David on that, but wanted to give you a heads up. So the real question tonight is asking for direction from you as to next step to make sure we can get the grant applied for in June and then work with the town to fund it and get reimbursed over the next working season. Sheila, did you have anything else? Sheila's been working on the grant, so if you had questions about the grant, she would answer those.
Hi, Sheila Colson. Yeah, so we've started drafting the grant, and Mid-Coast Trail Stewardship can also advise us because they know a lot about a lot of the technical questions. Project would ultimately need to go out to bid. Anyway, any questions about details and how that would work? Reimbursement. One question that we had that I looked into was that from the time that a reimbursement request is submitted to the state, it usually takes 4 to 6 weeks for a check to come back. So if the town submitted the request would be 4 to 6 weeks to get that check.
Okay. Thanks. I have a question. It's Article 7, termination. Leases shall have the right to terminate this lease for any reason upon 12 months written notice. Termination shall not affect any undischarged obligation of the leasee which have accrued under this lease up to date. It's my understanding it has to go back to the shape that it was in prior to us occupying it. So if we're gonna do this and we don't own the land, obviously someone has asked someone, do you guys want to own the land? But if we don't own the land, are we concerned about that? And I know we're leasing it for life, so to speak, technical term. But are we concerned about that, or are you guys concerned?
We're aware of it, but not concerned with it, because it's a gravel parking lot. It's there's no hard materials in the trail, so it wouldn't be hard to return it in its natural state.
It's wet labor, wet equity.
Stuff out there.
Yeah. Okay.
And honestly, once this gets improved, the state does some odd things, but I thought that they'd say tear up the trail that we paid for.
I guess.
But you're right, it doesn't
Something like that.
say that.
Just fix that.
So that goes to the first point, which is if they'll give this land to us. The other thing is the person we spoke to who works for the state on the grant, she confirmed also that the state has an initiative right now to get rid of little parcels like this.
Yeah.
So for some reason right now, so that opportunity may not be here a couple of years from now.
Yeah, okay.
I have a question about, is this, where's this pool of money coming from for the grant? And is this something that they have a chunk of money that they're dispersing and there won't be any more of this? Or is this a rolling grant kind of, I'm just wondering, adding, even if we get reimbursed, adding $60,000 to the budget could be a challenge to get approved. And so I'm just, is this the one and only opportunity to receive grant funding for this project, or are there other opportunities with?
So for this particular grant, it was started by the Trails Fund that was passed recently, or last year, 2 years ago. And it's for 4 years, and it's $7.5 million each year to go for grants. So Last year was the first year, will also be in 2027 and 2028. If we didn't get that one, there are other grants we could apply for, but we would.
Yeah, so the amount of the grant is 53,000,
Mhm.
but you get reimbursed. So we could probably work with David to be creative about, you know, because you don't need that full amount. You don't have to write a check for 53,000. You're gonna have 3 or 4, you know, that's gonna get broken up into segments. The other thing too is we don't want to lose our momentum, but we could do half of the work this fall and then do half of the work next year if you wanted to break it up to keep the impact down. So I hear what you're saying. You don't want to add to the budget, but I think we could work on this in a way that makes that quite modest, and it's totally reimbursable. So it's not a long-term real impact.
One point that you can ask for 25% of a advance for once you receive the grant, so that would cover part of it sooner.
And if you apply this year and you don't get it, you can apply again next year. But obviously the pools get eaten up, so the sooner you're in the line, the better.
What's the thoughts on the ownership versus not? Or continued lease?
I don't feel comfortable pursuing this at all with the lease. I just feel that when I look at, presumably there's no reason to assume that our relationship with the state would change. However, the ifs then start to stack up for me of, well, if they did, then we now have to pay to remove the stuff. And, you know, we would have wasted a lot of really great time and energy and effort. And also, you know, the encumbrance of any future legislative body to costs and maintenance and things like that. So it starts to get a little too, I guess, bureaucratically unwieldy with too many ifs going out into the future. So, you know, and I love all of the enthusiasm in the room and the amount of work that has gone into the room, but this isn't. We have our priorities list, right? And this has, the Conservation Commission has given rise to this project. And I feel like without voter approval, which we would be required to get anyway, but I just feel like I want a vote from the town to say, yes, we're into this project, we're into this concept, because, you know, this small group has been having this conversation with enthusiasm, but without the larger legislative body being like, hey, this is a really good idea, let's proceed with this. So I'm encouraged at the fact that I feel like it's too much to hit our voters with both either success or failure in June with like a 1-2 punch of like, let's do this project and we need money for a period of time. You know, I think I would rather seriously discuss pursuing ownership and present it to the voters saying, here's the full concept. This is what we're looking at. Get that approval from our voters and then pursue monies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Karen?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. My thought is that mirrors pretty much identical to what you just said lately is we can't proceed. I love the concept of owning that. There's no difference to the town today versus owning it tomorrow, in financial impact or anything like that, risk to the town. So if we can pursue that process, and that needs to be the priority first. I like the fact that you've got some existing funds that you can continue on, but I struggle with saying, let's try to get approval for an amount of funding to put in the budget, especially at this late time with where our budget is, and et cetera, at this current year. It's not something that would be really feasible.
Yeah, so, yeah. Feel like secure the land,
Mhm.
then we know we're on firm ground to look at working towards implementing all of these lovely ideas. And with the firm support of our community, pursue moving forward with funding and improvements.
Absolutely.
So could we do this to keep things going? Could we keep the conversation going with the state? First of all, get approval for this, because that takes a long time. And also, I'm hearing you saying you want the town administrator to say we are interested in, subject to town approval to getting this land. And that could be a matter that could come up this year. And then coming out of that conversation, then we could apply for a grant next year if.
Yeah, I think adding a warrant article to town meeting that basically seeks to get approval to gain ownership, transfer ownership.
So I was gonna.
Because we don't know that they're gonna say, yes, we'll give it to you. They just said, do you want it?
Right.
That's what's tricky.
Right. So,
Yeah.
so my next thing was gonna be to, David, process here to do this best. I see you suggested here that we basically ask the Conservation Commission, working probably with you, to request information from the state on the acquisition.
Yeah, I mean, we asked for some additional information a couple weeks ago or a month or so ago from the state about what conditions they have already on the property. State of Maine acquired this property through a grant. And they have conditions on the grant. So if they end up transferring it to us, we're going to assume all the conditions that they already agreed to and any others that they want to add to it.
Right.
But I think at this point, probably responding back to Director Linscott with, hey, we're interested and enthusiastic about number 8 on your letter. How do we make that happen? And pin them down to say, yes, you can, and here's the information you asked for before about the conditions of the grant. And at that point, if they say yes, then the lawyers have to write legalese. But
So from a process standpoint, the letter as it's written.
The letter as it's written today is more towards making improvements on the lease.
Right. So if we're going to pursue ownership or what that would be, we really don't need the letter.
We'd like to do both.
The Conservation Commission would like you to do both.
So in other words, we'd like to keep the conversation going about
Yeah.
getting
Yep.
approval for
Okay.
that amendment. But we'd like to say, give us the land and you don't have to bother with that. Because otherwise we have to go back again next year and start that conversation.
What is the likelihood that we could have clarity in a draft warrant article language for?
Slim to none. Would be my guess, based on the response we've received in the past from correspondence we send to Augusta.
Okay.
Does anybody think to the contrary of that?
DOT.
Came back and said, we'll give it to you. You don't have to get that approved at this year's town meeting. I mean, if we knew that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the town's gonna say no to taking.
Right. The other part of that is, obviously, you can have special town meeting.
Yeah.
We're gonna be voting again in November. Where we have,
That should be a simple.
we could have we could have a municipal ballot at that for,
Yeah.
be a special meeting, but.
Yep.
the likelihood of getting this all squared around between now and June town meeting is pretty slim,
Okay.
I guess.
Any other questions? I think we have a consensus. I guess I'd look for a couple motions here.
Well, with given that there will need to be some amendments to this letter.
Yes.
Right, like removal of point number 7. If we're pursuing ownership, we want to just make it clear that this is contingent upon pursuing ownership, and so I'm hung up on not having to remove all of the hard work.
Right.
Even though it is very simple gravel, all of that, but let's assume it's gonna get to stay. So I would say, combing through this and just making sure that this is through the lens of upon confirmation of transfer of ownership. I guess it's my only
Yep. I would agree with that.
note. So you want a first motion?
Sure.
So I move that the select board authorize the April 1st, 2026 letter with the amendments just discussed to Thomas and Scott to be sent.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Excellent.
And then further, I move that we ask the Conservation Commission in coordination with our town administrator to inquire of the state of Maine the details of the process to seek the transfer of the land to the town and the details of perpetual stewardship options.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this one? Seeing none, all in favor? Excellent. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
again, this has been great work you guys have done for a few years now on this. So thank you very much. Okay. Moving on to item number 11, follow-up discussion regarding the beach fire station water supply.
But George is headed that way. At your last meeting, the board had a conversation with the Pinkham about connecting the water supply line from the beach fire station to his property. The town attorney offered the opinion that the town meeting vote was necessary and appropriate for that. Well, George is fortunately here in town, so he's here and he can tell you anything else he wants to. Sure.
You have any questions?
No, I've reviewed the video from
Yeah.
your first conversation
Pretty straightforward.
and looked at the very interesting photographs.
Yeah, something.
Anything additional from you, Karen?
No.
With that, I
Very
would.
straightforward.
Anything you'd like to add?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Just appreciate your time.
Okay, with that, I guess I'd look for a motion then.
I move that the select board instruct the town administrator to work with the town attorney to prepare a warrant article for inclusion in the annual town meeting warrant that would seek voter approval to allow for the connection of the Penobscot Bay Properties LLC property located at 2516 Atlantic Highway to the water line supplying the beach fire station.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, favor? Excellent. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And the next item is in regards to Overlook Road.
Send pictures of it. Right, what's that? The next subject?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Moving on to Overlook Road. Yeah, yep.
Yes. So for Overlook Road, anything to add there, David?
Not beyond the newsletter, if you want me to read it to you or
No,
give you
no.
a summary, I can, but
I would,
I have not shared that information with George or Arlene Kent or anybody else down there.
questions or comments from board members?
We don't actually have to own the road to improve.
As I understand it currently, we have the right and ability to traverse for egress, ingress, regress, whatever is said in our deed, which includes the ability to fix or repair or replace or whatever the road, as long as we don't infringe upon somebody else's right to do the same thing or any right given to them for that property. In other words, we couldn't erect a gate there with a lock that we only had the combination to, because others have rights to traverse that road. But if we wanted to, we could pave it. Whatever. We could make improvements as long as it doesn't take off the neighbors.
And as such, any other person in a similar situation as us could do the same?
Oh, sure. I believe the post office has the right to traverse that road for their customers. I believe George has the right to traverse that road, and there may be, and the Kent certainly do, the people that own the former French estate, and there may be others.
Main
artisans, and so there's a lot of people that could, if they wanted to, have a finger in it.
I mean, my glib response in all of our different conversations about trying to give certain town roads back to private that are basically driveways, you know, my immediate knee-jerk reaction is we're not taking on any more roads. You know, that being said, we do utilize that for our fire station, so. It's the participating, maintaining it without.
That's what I was just thinking is I personally don't have an interest in the town taking on new road infrastructure, et cetera. It's very small, but I would think any of the property owners there that use the road should probably share the maintenance of it.
Yeah.
And come up with a plan for that.
Yep.
And some party, and maybe it is the town needs maybe to take point on what that might look like, but
yeah, but yeah, pursuing ownership is not participating for sure.
Yeah.
But ownership.
And how many people are there? I mean, obviously there's
at least 5 parties that were just mentioned, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I personally agree that we don't see the town take over yet another piece of road to maintain,
right,
so to speak. I feel the town could probably take the lead, or point to wrangle everybody up and move it forward. But I don't want.
Well, but at that point, you know, what's the difference between ownership, you know, if we're essentially taking on.
Well, it's not. Is it really taking it on? It's just a responsible party.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right, but what, so. With my bureaucratic mind comes into play is that if the town takes lead, the town's obligated to any number of other encumbrances and burdens that a private individual. They
Wouldn't necessarily.
getting quotes for work isn't, you know, and I translation, it makes things a lot more expensive.
No, yeah.
To just do a project for the town, that would require, bonding and all this
That's true.
stuff. So I guess from that perspective, I wouldn't necessarily want the town to take the lead on that.
Understood.
And, determining a fair percentage of contribution towards the maintenance and upkeep. Different conversation, but who's going to establish?
Do you think one of the existing property owners would be interested in taking point on?
We've, Linda and I have asked the Kents for over a couple of years now to try to get together and we'll split the cost, and the post office as well. And we just can't seem to pull everybody together. Emails go unanswered, etc. And I appreciate what you guys are saying completely. Yeah. Our contention would be that if we were to put a counter out there and count how many of the building owners down there that actually use that road versus what the post office clients wear and tear on that road is, it wouldn't even be close. Yeah, the post office is the problem, not directly.
Right.
Their customers using that road,
Yeah.
is the problem, and in particular, the two wheels on the right-hand side of the car. The road's not wide enough. Right? It just doesn't allow for it, so they end up driving on our parking lot, and then that's what leads to water accumulation, and then the water erodes the blacktop and erodes the parking lot, and then you see in the pictures what it looks like.
I'm not sure of any good next step.
Yeah, really.
Even
We'll continue to show up. I mean, when we had that last meeting, was it a couple of years ago now?
What, the meeting, the initial meeting,
Yeah.
when you came down?
Yeah.
2 or 3.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't coordinate it, obviously, but we were invited and we were obviously an active, interested party, and we went to the meeting.
Yeah.
Somebody calls another one, we'll show up.
Is there
Okay.
some type of documented plan for when that parking lot for the post office was constructed and paved and everything that indicates an exit or entry on the back? Since I assume it's all in.
Yeah, right across from the garage, the firehouse.
Yeah, I just wonder if there's a plan for that, and somebody planned for the exit or entrance to come off your road, you people's road. I mean, is there a plan for that parking lot?
The way it's been explained to me is that the post office has the right to use that road for their customers. And whether or not that cutout was in the plan, I don't know.
So there must be something somewhere that says they have the right.
I believe Arlene has that information, Arlene Kent.
Yeah, I would feel like that's the route to pursue is, obviously the usership of that post office.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
using that
it's
convenient loop.
exactly, and it's gotten so much busier over the last 10 years than when I bought the building 25 years ago. There were no water issues out there 25 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the root of the issue.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything more we're going to be able to address at this point in time. I think it's going to be pursue with the other property owners in there, see if you can get the detail from the Kent property.
Okay.
We'll continue to do what we can within the context of.
We're a good neighbor there, and as David said, if there's additional meetings or anything that can come together, we'll participate. We'll be at the table.
Okay,
if invited.
that's fair enough.
Okay. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 13. Anything to state here, David, on consent agreement?
No, unless you want me to talk.
Not necessary. I think all of us have probably read it. Any questions or comments? If not, I would look for a motion.
I move that the select board authorize Stephen Hand as the chair of the select board to sign the consent agreement by and between Wayne Manning and the town of Lincolnville.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, we need to appoint our building inspector.
Move that the select board appoint Frank Terrio as building inspector.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And we need to do similar for our election clerks.
Move that the select board appoint those listed on proposed election clerks list dated April 10th, 2026 as election clerk for a 2-year term.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that one? Seeing none, all in favor? Hey. We have the CSD, Pipetown CSD warrant and notice of election. I've reviewed that myself and it is what it is. It's our duty. I would look for a motion.
Move the board approve and countersign the warrant and notice of election calling Pipetown Community School District budget validation referendum to be conducted on June 9th, 2026.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? There we go. David, anything to state here regarding the assessor's agent?
Maybe just for the public's notice and information that our assessor's agent has informed us that they do not wish, they will not be signing another contract to continue as of the new fiscal year. Because this is a key component to the town's functioning. We put together the notice that is in your packet. We've mailed that out directly to those that are listed on the Maine Revenue Services list of assessors agents. And some others in the business. We posted it on the website, blah, blah, looking to get some either authorizing me to look at first blush or me and somebody else so that we can keep this moving and get somebody on board for July. And we've asked for proposals to be back by May 7th and like to strike immediately thereafter. Already started to field some questions. Some interested parties and some thanks for thinking of us, but we're already booked out. Have a nice day.
Well, responses are good.
Yeah.
So I know David's looking for one or more of us to participate in that process. I myself would be very interested in, but I am going to be gone. Actually, interested in straight look at schedules regarding 8th and 15th. I'm fine. I leave May 16th. So I would be happy to be one.
Yeah,
I'd like to have a second.
I'll be interested.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I certainly appreciate
I
that,
had-
and let me know.
I had missed the May to 15th, so that fits perfect. With that in mind, any other questions for David on this one? If not, I guess I'll look for a motion with mine and Lately's name in here.
16.
Yeah, I move to appoint Chair Hand and Lately Dunn, or Vice Chair Lately Dunn, of the select board members to assist the town administrator in reviewing the initial submittals for the assessor's agent position and then making a recommendation to the full board.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Excellent. Okay. We're getting towards the end, so it almost rolled into a second page agenda.
Smaller font.
Okay.
So now I was like, we squish that down.
So we've got the review of the annual town meeting warrant.
Yeah, so other than adding water.
Yep.
Add 17.
As it sits right now, I didn't either.
Looks good.
So we can keep moving on. Next up is select person updates. Really?
I attended the school committee's public. Well, I guess not their public meeting, but their meeting where they approved the budget. And it results in a 9.979% increase. That was the directive, was to keep it below 10%, and they did so just by a hair. And I guess I will just say that I am concerned that there was conversation in the second half of the meeting regarding a number of expenses that were not included in that budget that will quite likely need to be expended within the next budget year. And so I look forward to future meetings where I can get greater clarification regarding how those anticipated overages are going to be addressed.
So they already know there's gonna be overages and they didn't budget. Is that what I'm hearing here?
That's what it looks like, unless their plan is to pursue staying within that amount that they need and they're gonna sacrifice. So that's, I'm looking forward to seeking clarification there. Is the goal to stay within that number? Or is there an anticipation of coming back? I'm not clear.
If you want to come up,
Well,
and actually, it's not, actually, this isn't, sorry.
that
Yeah.
is,
This is actually the select board, it's a different part of the agenda, so thank you. No.
so I'm just gonna leave it there, because it's
Yeah.
not our budget, it's not, but you know, as an interested member of the board and.
I did not attend that meeting, but some clarity or some additional information may be available tomorrow.
Yes.
When the school committee presents its budget its budget recommendations to the budget committee.
Yes. I'll be there.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what I'm
that's
hoping for,
tomorrow.
yeah.
I'll be there too.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just funny.
Sure.
I don't have anything. Sorry.
No, nothing.
I got nothing.
And from myself, I have nothing this time either.
Steve, if I could ask you, I'm hearing that there are issues still with the boilers. Parents complaining, and I don't know what the complaints are or anything, so I'm just, do you know?
I haven't been officially notified, but I understand that they're having challenges with the alternating of the one boiler on, one boiler off, the other boiler on, the other boiler.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not directly aware of that, but it'll be something we'll make sure we bring up in the next facilities meeting.
It was idle conversation, and that's what I heard. Can't even get that right, that type of thing, and I'm like, this. To me ask a few questions, so. Okay,
Okay.
so I do have one more question. So lately, this would be for you, and maybe you don't know, but where you were at that meeting. Did they roll the boiler expenses into this upcoming budget, or do you think they
Yeah,
did?
they took out a high interest.
7 year.
So resulting in, they're treating it as a debt service, even though it, I guess it technically isn't, of $97,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's all I got.
Treasurer and payroll warrants.
I move that the board approve and sign the treasurer and payroll warrants.
Second,
Moved and seconded, all in favor? You have one last motion.
We adjourn.